Yeah, so bioterrorism. So there is a gene editing tool that allows you to copy and paste your DNA with precision.
Yep.
And that is called CRISPR, CRISPR.
Hmm.
And apparently it's open to the public. And you can buy it as cheap as $200. Like you can buy cheap kits for as cheap as $200. Not the CRISPR, but like there's other bio
Oh, interesting.
things. And it was first used, CRISPR itself was first used in the lab in 2012. And then today it is taught in undergrad courses for people that want to do biology stuff, you know?
Interesting.
And in 2022, we talked about this before, I think privately, but researchers had a collaboration with pharmaceutical companies and used an um, AI model that was used for creating new drugs.
Yep.
And in 6 hours, they generated 40,000 bioweapons,
Potentials. Yeah.
similar to VX nerve agent.
Yep.
So that's scary. That's scary
So
stuff.
so the timeline to creating new drugs and new molecules, that timeline through AI capability and the ability to crunch data is exponentially shorter.
That's scary.
It is scary.
40,000 in 6 hours.
Well, you have to. So what that means is they didn't make those,
No.
but they developed the genome, they developed the sequencing, they developed the molecule structure to create them.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they will or can,
But it's in the data.
but it's the data's there, right?
Yeah. So any skilled biohacker, even a teenager that is very passionate about hacking, in theory can design something using CRISPR code, have a lab and a little bit of determination.
Dude,
And there you go.
what was the COVID? Came out of Wuhan.
Oh yeah, the lab.
This is admitted now. Gain of function
Yeah.
research was funded by Western nations.
Yeah.
Right? And it is escaped. Right? So they caused the problem and then they created the solution by creating another drug that you're supposed to take.
Yes.
It's insane. Right?
Yes. Bless you.
Right? It's crazy.
Oh, bless you.
Good grief.
And then, so there's a real life example of somebody going to jail for this. I didn't know. Did you know?
No, what happened?
Okay. 2018, a Chinese scientist, I'm gonna not be able to say his name. Jiankui.
Jenky?
I don't know. Edited human embryos using CRISPR illegally. Children were born, and now he is in jail.
They created children? Yeah. It's true.
That's scary.
So if people think you can't do cloning of human beings, if people think you can't alter genomes today to make different human beings, and if people think that this kind of work doesn't go on, they're crazy because it absolutely goes on.
I think it's hard for people to even think of that because that used to be sci-fi stuff.
It's happening.
I know, but it's still seen as sci-fi because this new reality is really hard to take in because it changed so fast.
Well, here's the thing. It's being done, but by who? Who's funding it and where?
Yeah.
And then the bigger question is why? But it is definitely happening.
Yeah.
Right? And so, will there be, so whether you believe COVID was what it was, I think it was a bunch of crap, but whatever you think it was, so will the next one be the real end of man, a massive end of life event, right? Who knows? Could be, but we won't be prepared for it. So that's crazy.
Yeah.
People going to jail. Good. They better go to jail.
And then there's like a big thing about antibiotics not working lately.
Of course they don't. People pop them too much.
Yeah. Or like, I mean,
look in Japan. If you go to the doctor in Japan for a hemorrhoid, they'll give you antibiotics. They do. If you go to Japan to the doctor, well, they used to. I don't know if they do anymore. But if you go to Japan for a broken finger, you'll come out with 20 days of antibiotics. I hated it, and I never took them. But that's what used to happen. I'm not sure if it's changed.
I don't know either. But this big pharma ideology of pop a pill and you'll be fine is becoming so normal that your body is now, not everybody's, depending on the person, but and how much you take, but their bodies are getting immune to these certain painkillers and these I don't know,
Antibiotics and
antibiotics and
antiviral drugs and stuff.
yeah.
Well, of course.
And so a lot of people are apparently having apparently there's like people, I don't know if they're suffering, but there are people that are dying because of their body being so immune to it. Now, I don't have the numbers for that because I decided not to talk about that specifically, but here I am talking about it, so I don't have the numbers or any research. So I could be talking out of my butt, but that's
Well,
what I read.
so here's the thing, right? So provide the information, provide the ideas, and people can go look it up themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
The point is that this kind of end of life, biohacking, drug resistant, new strains of disease, man made, many of them, is a real thing. What doesn't help is the media. Like, so today in Canada, there's a big thing about measles
Yeah.
and how measles is so bad. And out of 5 million people in Alberta, 300 have measles. Well, so I just think that's silly. But, because I had measles when I was a kid, nobody gave a crap. Right? Oh, it's so dangerous. Whatever. I think the point is that you have to take all the information and then sift through the echo chamber information with the real scientific information,
Mm-hmm.
and try and understand where your information comes from. And you can't rely on media telling you what's false information or misinformation or disinformation, because who put them in charge,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's really frustrating.
And talking about information, that leads me to my next topic, which was the internet. So
Or
how we, us as specifically maybe from millennial and younger, maybe more Gen Z, but we grew up with the internet when we were quite young, maybe more Gen Z than millennial. And now we look at it as if it's a forever thing and it will never go away.
the internet.
Yeah. That's how I feel like that's how a lot of young and maybe even older people look at it, because it has been here for 24/7 unless there's a glitch or something.
Well, it's not going away, or it may change form.
Yes, but it's something that we see it as forever.
Yeah,
The cloud.
Yeah.
And
So just think if there was like a terrorist attack and the cloud or the internet went down,
yeah, it'll be
you're
chaos.
screwed.
Yeah. So
Nothing works.
talking about misinformation, nowadays there's so much AI content that is full of garbage.
Yep.
With no scientific background. And it's just AI pulling other people's
Well, it
opinions.
just aggregates all this crap.
Yeah.
Pukes
And
it
then pukes it out. And then some people are creating a website out of that. And then now people are looking into it, clicking into that, thinking that
it's real.
it's real
Yep.
because it's on the internet and they don't do their research. So there's so much AI stuff, and there's GPT websites, spam blogs, and SEO sludge. And it's just like so much real information, and even more in the near future is going to be drowned out.
Yeah, the challenge is, who do you put in charge, or should anyone be in charge to tell you what's real information? There's a definite danger in that too. Right? Now you're talking giving somebody, a government bureau or a bureaucrat, the power to tell you, oh, don't worry about that, that's misinformation. Really? Who said? Right? Who are you to tell me? So, yeah, it's crazy stuff.
Yeah. And we're just rely on it 24/7.
24/7.
Yeah. Students rely on it.
Yep.
Kayla relies on it. I rely on it. You rely on it.
Yeah.
It's just the new library.
It is easy to, like, in a conversation, how can I say this? So you can take some search capabilities in some ways. So when you're having a conversation and you say a statistic, like, I can take Perplexity and see if that is actually true. I don't know if the statistic I'm getting is true, and I don't know if the one that you said was true. Maybe they're both true, but they're looked at in a different way, a different question,
Mm-hmm.
a different demographic, a different country, a different right. So, yeah, so those kind of arguments will only see to further divide. But here's the thing, right? So if you have a group of friends, say you have 150 friends, uh, you know, like fr- you could list out about 100 people that you would consider acquaintances, friends, whatever, include coworkers. And you said, let's say 10% of those are close friends. So maybe 10 out of the 100. Now there's maybe 10% of that, one or two people are really close friends. So what tends to happen is as you get more and more solidified in your ideas, the close friends may stay because you agree with them on a lot of things, or that you just got that relationship. The outer 10%, the the one or two will stay. The outer 10 people, you might lose some because you don't agree on politics. You just don't like, right? Or they didn't agree with you on this statistic or that, right? It's happening, right? And then the outer 100 people, you are constantly changing in and out,
Mm-hmm.
right? But what's happening is with with uh, with social media and stuff, that group of 150 in the old days when I grew up, it wasn't an echo chamber. You had to talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have social media to get into an echo chamber and just hear the things you wanted to hear. You had to hear things you didn't want to hear. So everything was well rounded. Well, today, that group of 150 people is constantly churning, but whether you know it or not, social media in particular, it's just bringing you closer to people that already think like you.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you have the divide getting wider and wider and wider, and the groups on both sides of an argument getting more entrenched, entrenched, entrenched. Why? Because they're always told that everybody agrees with them when they don't.
Yeah. And it's okay to disagree. We need
Of
to make
course,
it.
you can be friends without disagreeing, but you have no many. You know how many people don't want to talk to people because of their politics? Nuts.
That's not. I don't. I disagree with that. I mean, you can disagree on a lot of things with your friends, but because of a political view is different. That's a weird way of. That's a weird reason to say goodbye.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
don't have to talk about it then. Just don't
No,
talk about it. You don't agree? Then talk. Don't talk about it.
yeah, talk about something else.
So yeah, you became friends because you had something in common. If politics is not something that is in common, then don't talk about it and talk about the things that you did have in common.
Yeah,
Easy as that. Yeah, you might look at them and be like, "Oh, this happened in a political world," and things might be going in your head, but why would you talk about it
yeah,
if it's not good for your relationship?
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know. Everybody, it's gotten crazy.
yeah,
So
but
you know what I do? I just, I'm old enough. I just tune people out. I
and
don't care anymore.
tuning people out is good to a certain extent, but on other reasons it may not be a good thing.
Yeah, but
Like
mm,
in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, mom told me that they stopped turning on the atomic bomb sirens every year. It used to be a yearly thing
why?
because the Hiroshima reason is because the younger generation, so my generation and your generation, did not experience it. So why pass on the
They
trauma?
were probably just annoyed more than anything.
That wasn't what it said on the articles. And then Nagasaki's reason is because we are trying to focus on peace. There's no reason to sound the atomic bomb alarms anymore.
Mm.
But it's once a year. And so these politicians decided not to do that and they tuned other people out. But I I used to listen to that siren when we lived there every year,
Mm-hmm.
3 days before my birthday. Every year. And it scared the crap out of me because it's such a deep, like unsettling sound. But even though I didn't experience World War II, and I'm so lucky that I haven't experienced any war firsthand, it is something that my family went through, and it's something that should be talked about because nuclear weapons and the tragedy it causes is not pretty.
Right, right. Yep. Yep.
And stopping the alarm just because
Passes
just
on
one.
trauma. That's your generation's weak.
But my generation didn't even say that. It was the politician
Well,
that decided
they're
that.
just a bunch of losers.
And it's just like, what? I grew up with it. I'm not traumatized by it, but I knew that the alarm was coming and I'd be scared.
But they got the idea from somebody, and that somebody must have convinced them that young people are too fragile to be,
Listening to alarms.
listening to. Yeah, it's just silly, right? So
It's a day that it's a very emotional day for a lot of Japanese people.
yeah,
And why would you get rid of that? It's talked about throughout entire Japan, and it's talked about throughout the world because it was a big deal. Now, how you view it, Americans view it very differently. I've talked to some Americans
of course.
that have a very opposite look as how a Japanese person looks at it, which is fine, but it's definitely a day that should not be forgotten, no matter how you look at it.
I remember one time when I was at a bookstore in Japan and I was reading a magazine about aircraft, jet fighter aircraft and World War II aircraft. And this old Japanese dude came up to me and he said, "Are you American?" In Japanese. I said, "No, I'm Canadian." He said, "Oh, see that airplane right there? It's a P-51. I know that plane. You want to know how I know that plane? Because when I was in Okinawa, a bunch of them came and they shot at me. Bumba, 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 like this," he said. And my buddies next to me all died, but I was able to escape. And he told me this story. Well, I don't do justice to the story, but he told me this story, right? And so I got that perspective. And he said I could see the eyes of the pilot as they come in and they're shooting at you. I was like, that's crazy.
That is crazy.
But he experienced that.
And those are things that that we should talk about because that's something that actually happened. But nowadays, governments and schools are trying to shut that part of history out.
Yeah, well, I think for a nefarious reason, but that's just me. But here's this crazier part. Go ahead.
Oh, I lost my train of thought.
Here's the crazier part. Every day, well, maybe not every day, but every year at least, there are things that go on in the world that we never know about, but that are close to the end of mankind. I'm going to read you a couple. Okay?
Okay.
On January 25th, 1995, Russian early warning systems detected a missile launch off the coast of Norway. Believing it could be a U.S. nuclear attack, remember, in 1995. It's a little later, close to the end of the Cold War. Russian President Boris Yeltsin was given the nuclear briefcase. You know what that is?
Yes. Yes.
The first and only time in history a world leader has activated it in preparation for a retaliatory strike.
That's scary.
The missile was actually a research rocket from Norway, which they had notified Russia ahead of time, but the message got lost.
So someone had to check their emails. It would have been okay.
Yeah. So today, AI-powered military decision-making removes human hesitation. That's not true. In launching nuclear weapons, it's all human. They haven't put AI in that place yet.
That you know of.
They haven't. Maybe.
That you know of.
So here's another one. In the 1960s, the U.S. designed an unholy thing called Project Pluto, a nuclear-powered supersonic cruise missile capable of flying indefinitely, dropped hydrogen bombs as it went, and spewed radioactive exhaust the whole time. Thankfully, it worked, but thankfully it was never deployed. But today, we don't have those. We don't have supersonic cruise missiles that drop hydrogen bombs, although I did see a cruise missile test when I was hunting once in Alberta during the Cold War.
I also read that there was a hydrogen bomb that they were testing out in the U.S. and it fell where it wasn't supposed to fall.
Yeah, all sorts of weird stuff.
But then, so there's three switches that needs to be turned on for it to be active. And then this hydrogen bomb was 200 times bigger than the Hiroshima bomb. 200 times bigger. And a good thing it didn't go off because all three of those, two of them activated except for one. There was a wire default there. So that would have been catastrophic if that actually went off. Because it literally fell out and landed where it wasn't supposed to.
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
Well, I think, so we don't have cruise missiles right now, but autonomous drones, like in Ukraine,
Wait, cruise missiles? What about like North Korea shooting towards
Those are
Japan?
ballistic missiles.
Oh.
They're different. Today, so on the battlefield, soldiers in Ukraine, for example, have to worry about autonomous drones. So men put grenades and other explosives on drones, and they fly them, and they blow people up, right?
Yeah.
And some of the videos I've seen, people are like, they're surrendering, or they don't even have weapons, and these guys just kill each other.
I don't like I can I just say one thing?
What?
I hate that the internet, like on Instagram, you see
Yep.
a very deadly accident happening and you witness somebody else die.
Well, you desensitize yourself.
And
It's
I
horrible.
hate it
Yep.
so much.
Yeah.
I hate it. And we look at it thinking, oh, was that AI? Or is
Yeah.
that from the movie? When it came from like an actual real life
The real
security
human
camera.
being. Yeah.
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 And I hate that. And I don't know why there isn't policy against that. You shouldn't be watching other people die on social media. That's not entertainment. It's
It,
disgusting.
you're right. It's desensitized people. Operation Dark Winter. In 2001, U.S. intelligence agencies ran a simulated bio-terror attack called Operation Dark Winter, a smallpox outbreak that spread throughout airports and crushed healthcare systems. And the outcome? Societal breakdown within 3 weeks.
When was this?
This is in 2001. This was a test, simulation.
Oh,
Societal breakdown within 3 weeks. So panic, supply chains collapse, political assassinations, blows, explosions, blah, blah, blah. So
kind of like what COVID.
well, they're right. So then fast forward to COVID, when supply chains broke, hospitals collapsed, healthcare went in the toilet, still in the toilet in Canada. Social trust eroded, but COVID only had a way less than 1% fatality rate.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens when it hits 30%? And antibiotics resistance, what you were talking about, antiviral med resistance, what you were talking about, makes it so that you can't get, even if you can create the drugs, you can't get them out fast enough because your supply chains have collapsed.
That's
Right?
scary.
So,
Well, war is going to look very different in the future.
Yeah, chaos will look very, very, very different. Now, having said that, it can go one of two ways. Technology can help us predict and prevent, right? Or governments can use technology to restrict to prevent. Right? There's predict to prevent, which means, we can prepare. And then there's restrict to prevent, which governments will go to, which is the heavy hand of censorship, the military cracking down. You can't move. You can't, just like what they did during COVID, but on a much larger scale. And so they begin to do that just in case, and then you see, then you see dictatorships arise and authoritarian things, all for your safety. So there's two sides to that coin.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine I'm pretty sure due to human nature which one will head down, because we're already heading down that way. But there's some pretty crazy stuff out there about the end of the world and how it's being. Millionaires, like, they're building bunkers and stuff like that kind of stuff, preparing for this.
Mm-hmm.
So you and I are screwed, right?
Well, you need to become friends with a millionaire. So
Well, I'm not a billionaire. You and I are screwed, and they're even taking away your ability in Canada, at least, to protect yourself. It's nuts.
Yeah.
Right? God, I hate this place. But anyway, I do. I can't stand Canada anymore. It's not the same. I hate it. But yeah. So very interesting topic. What I would say is people should educate themselves. Don't be afraid. I would prepare, and look for information sources that you can try to trust, and leverage the capabilities of LLMs and perplexities and the ChatGPT to dig out information from sources that hopefully you can trust. I tell you, the source to not trust: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook ads.
Or literally get a book.
Yeah.
Pick up a book.
Most books, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's enough access to scientific journals and real life stuff that you don't need to trust what's on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
So there's really no excuse, but people hear what they want to hear. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And remember, you don't own your data. You lease it.
What? Well, if you look at the terms and conditions you sign when you click on accept Apple terms and conditions, no, your data's theirs,
Yep. You're
and they
leasing your data.
yeah, and they use it. Trust me, they use it. That's why people think Tesla is a car company. It is not. It's a data company, right? Even Hudson Bay is going broke in Canada. You know Hudson Bay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're doing a
People
big
don't want their
sale.
people don't want their inventory, and they don't want their buildings. What do they want?
Data.
They want the data on the customers.
So much data.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people didn't right. So, but over decades and decades, maybe some of it has to be digitized, but there's a lot of data there, and whether any of it's useful or not, they have to sell it and stuff, but people will buy it because that's the interesting part of a company now.
Because you can get phone numbers, you can get emails.
Yep. And it's legal for them to sell.
That's crazy. Yeah. Well, that was a little depressing. I don't know. History repeats itself. So even if we're like talking about preventing it, something will always happen, but in a different way.
Yeah.
The same thing will happen. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, the cycles in human history, the cycles always change, but maybe the technology or the scale will also change, but there's what comes out on the other side is always better, has been up till now. The only question is when that cycle repeats in our lifetime on a global scale, will there be anybody left to come out on the other side? Where we really haven't had that capability to completely annihilate ourselves.
Yeah.
Except for on a smaller geographic scale. But now we have the ability to annihilate ourselves on a global scale. So unless you live in some small Pacific, island out in the middle of the Pacific or the Atlantic, you're with everybody else. You're bent. You're screwed, right? So, which I find crazy because like The Last of Us and what's some of the other zombie ones and apocalypse ones?
The Walking Dead.
The Walking Dead. You know what they never do?
No.
I was thinking about this. So all the people that worked at nuclear plants.
Yeah.
Right. All those nuclear plants have to be shut down very carefully or they explode nuclear material all over the place.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so if all the people working in a nuclear plant went zombie and the nuclear plants around the world aren't shut down properly, the entire world gets blanketed in nuclear a cloud of nuclear crap. And
Yeah.
I've always thought about that. Gee, nobody's dying of nuclear radiation when surely Europe, the European reactors, any Western reactors in China, Japan, they would all just go, right? Anyway, that was my morbid thought for I've had.
Well, you need to have positive thoughts. Someone smart enough to shut them down before the apocalypse.
Before they turn into zombies? Let's pray.
I hope that day never comes. Okay. Great topic. Thanks, Dad.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thanks.
Okay. Well, let us know what you think. And do you have any thoughts on any of this stuff? Do you have any stories that you want to share?
No, I just it's if you young people don't take the opportunity, but if you still have relatives that lived through some of the scarier eras, like the Cold War, or served in different war zones, Middle East, Vietnam, if by chance you have a great grandfather that served in World War I, and they will talk about it.
Or you mean two?
Or World War II, and they will talk about it. It's interesting to hear perspectives about things. My grandfather didn't talk about it very much because it was fairly traumatic, and he didn't like to talk about it. But, and when I was younger, I just wanted to hear about army stuff. But now that I'm older, it's often tragic that I was too young to have, a different perspective or a different conversation with him in particular, or with my future or past generations, to get different perspectives. So if you have that opportunity, I would take it.
A lot of them have passed.
They died. Yep.
Yeah, but who knows? Okay, thanks for listening. And if you have any stories, let us know. I'd be more than interested in reading it.
Yeah, because some of them are pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay, have a great day. Bye.
Bye-bye.